You're standing on the deck of a wooden ship somewhere in the Indian Ocean. You've been at sea for 7 months. The smell of salt, sweat and sickness hangs in the air. Your lips are cracked. Your clothes haven't been properly washed in weeks. Yesterday, the crew buried another sailor at sea. There was no ceremony, no grieving family, no headstone, just a body wrapped in canvas, sliding silently beneath the waves. The ship barely slowed down because time is money and the company never waits. Ahead of you, beyond the morning fog, lies India, a place you've never seen, a place you've only heard about through impossible stories. Cities overflowing with gold, markets filled with spices worth more than a year's wages, silks softer than anything made in England, jewels owned by princes richer than entire kingdoms. You left home chasing opportunity. You think you're sailing toward a better life. You couldn't be more wrong, because before this journey is over, you'll witness wars fought for profit. You'll watch kingdoms rise and kingdoms disappear. You'll shake hands with kings, you'll negotiate with merchants, you'll command men carrying muskets with your company's flag stitched to their uniforms. And one day, you'll realize you're no longer working for a trading company, you're helping build an empire. But how does an ordinary 17-year-old clerk become part of the most powerful corporation the world has ever known? How does a company become so wealthy, so influential, that it begins making decisions once reserved for kings? And when unimaginable wealth is finally within your reach, how much of yourself are you willing to sacrifice to keep it? Today, I'll take you through every rank of your life inside the East India Company, from the nervous teenager boarding his very first ship to the powerful officer helping shape the future of an empire. Before your journey begins, subscribe now, because this won't be the last life you'll live on this channel. Next time, you might wake up as a Roman gladiator, a pirate hunting treasure across the Caribbean, a samurai defending your lord, or a Soviet officer standing between peace and nuclear war. Every extraordinary life begins with a single step. Today, that step is yours. Take one last look at the horizon, because once this ship reaches India, nothing about your life will ever be the same. Your story begins now. You are still a civilian. You're 17 years old. Your father was never wealthy. He worked hard every day, yet somehow there was never enough money, enough food, enough opportunities. You learned very early that hard work alone doesn't guarantee success. In Britain, your future is usually decided before you're even born. If your family owns land, you'll inherit it. If your father owns a business, you'll probably run it one day. If you're poor, you'll most likely stay poor, unless you find another path. For months, you've heard people talking about a company whose ships return from the East carrying fortunes, the East India Company. Some men come back rich enough to buy country estates. Others never return at all. Some die from disease. Some disappear during the voyage. Some are killed in wars they never expected to fight. Nobody calls it safe, but everyone agrees on one thing. If you survive, your life might change forever. One cold morning, carrying everything you own inside a small leather bag, you walk toward the company's headquarters. The building is larger than anything you've ever entered. Well-dressed officials move through its halls with quiet confidence. Maps cover the walls. India, Persia, China, the Spice Islands, places you've only seen in books. A clerk hands you several sheets of paper. Your name, your age, your place of birth, your education. You answer every question carefully. A mistake here could cost you the opportunity of a lifetime. Hours later, a senior company official studies your application. He barely looks at you. Instead, he asks a single question. Why do you wish to serve the East India Company? You already know the answer. Not because you're chasing adventure, not because you dream of distant lands, but because staying in England guarantees one thing: A life exactly like the one you've always known. You refuse to accept that. The official signs your papers. The ink hasn't even dried before your future changes forever. You're no longer just another young man from London. You're now a company writer, the lowest rank inside one of the fastest growing trading organizations in the world. Your salary isn't impressive. Your position isn't important. For now, your job is simple. Keep records, write letters, copy contracts, learn, watch, obey. You tell yourself it's only paperwork, only business, only trade. You have no way of knowing that these simple tasks are the first steps toward something far larger than anyone in this room can imagine. Within a few weeks, you'll leave England behind. The next time you see home, if you ever do, you'll be a completely different man. The voyage. You have less than 3 weeks to prepare. You sell the few possessions you can't carry. You buy a second shirt, a thicker coat, a journal, and a small Bible your mother insists you keep close. The night before you leave, your family gathers for one final dinner. Nobody talks about the possibility that you might never come home, but everyone is thinking it. Your mother smiles more than usual. Your father tries to give you advice. Work hard, stay honest, remember where you came from. Simple words. Words that will become harder to follow than either of you could ever imagine. The next morning, you arrive at the Port of London before sunrise. Hundreds of dock workers swarm around enormous wooden ships, crates of tea, barrels of gunpowder, cannons, textiles, iron tools. Everything needed for a voyage halfway around the world. The ship that will become your home towers above the harbour. It's far larger than you imagined. 3 towering masts, dozens of heavy cannons, hundreds of sailors shouting orders you've never heard before. For a brief moment, you wonder if you've made a terrible mistake. Then the ropes are untied, the sails catch the wind. England slowly disappears behind the morning mist. You don't realize it yet, but you've just said goodbye to your old life forever. The first few weeks are almost exciting. Everything feels new. You climb the rigging, learn the routines, listen to stories from sailors who've already made the journey several times. They speak about India as if it belongs in another world. Cities larger than London, markets overflowing with spices, kings wearing diamonds the size of walnuts. You hang on every word. Then the excitement begins to fade. Days become weeks, weeks become months. Every sunrise looks exactly like the last. The ocean stretches endlessly in every direction. There is nowhere to walk, nowhere to escape, nowhere to hide. The food grows worse every week. Salted beef, hard biscuits crawling with insects, stale water stored in wooden barrels. Fresh fruit disappears long before the voyage reaches its halfway point. Then the sickness begins. One sailor develops swollen gums, another can barely stand, several lose their teeth. You don't know the word scurvy. You only know healthy men are becoming weak, then dying. The ship's surgeon does everything he can. It isn't enough. One morning, you wake to complete silence. No shouting, no singing, no laughter. Only the sound of waves crashing against the hull. A young sailor, no older than 20, died during the night. Within minutes, his body is wrapped tightly in canvas. A cannonball is tied around his feet. The captain reads a short prayer. The crew removes their hats. The body slides into the sea. The ocean closes over him. The voyage continues. No one speaks, because tomorrow it could be you. As the months pass, the sea tests you again. A violent storm erupts without warning. Towering waves crash over the deck. The ship groans as if it's about to split apart. Barrels break loose. Masts bend. Men scream as they're thrown across the deck. You grip the railing until your hands bleed. Every instinct tells you to run, but there is nowhere to run. One sailor loses his footing. Within seconds, he's gone. The darkness swallows him whole. Nobody jumps in after him. Nobody can. Out here, the sea always wins. When morning finally arrives, the storm has passed. The ship survived, so did you. But something inside you has changed. The frightened boy who left England is slowly disappearing. In his place, a harder man is beginning to emerge. Months later, a cry echoes from the crow's nest. Land! Every man on deck rushes toward the railing. Far in the distance, a thin green line appears on the horizon. India, at last, you smile. You think the hardest part of your journey is over. You couldn't be more wrong. Because the moment you step onto Indian soil, you'll discover that surviving the voyage was the easy part. A stranger in India. The first thing you notice is the heat. It wraps around your body like a heavy blanket. The air feels thicker, harder to breathe. Even standing still makes sweat drip down your face. This isn't England. Nothing here is. As the ship anchors near Fort St. George in Madras, dozens of small boats rush toward you. Local merchants, dock workers, translators, laborers, everyone shouting in languages you've never heard before. The docks are alive. Oxen pull enormous carts stacked with cotton and spices. Men carry crates balanced effortlessly on their shoulders. Women in brightly colored clothing weave through crowded streets. The smell is overwhelming. Pepper, cinnamon, smoke, seawater, animals, incense. Everything mixes together into something completely foreign. For a moment, you simply stand there, watching, trying to understand how another world can exist beneath the same sky. Then reality returns. A company officer calls your name. Move. You grab your bag and follow the other new recruits through the gates of the company's settlement. High stone walls surround the compound. Armed guards patrol every entrance. Cannons point toward both the sea and the city. That surprises you. Back in England, you thought the East India Company was just a business. Businesses don't build forts. Businesses don't train soldiers. Businesses don't defend themselves with cannons. You begin to realize this company is something entirely different. Your quarters are small. A wooden bed, a desk, a chair, a single window overlooking the busy streets outside. Luxury wasn't part of your contract. The next morning, your real education begins. You report to the accounting office before sunrise. Your supervisor barely acknowledges your presence. He drops a mountain of ledgers onto your desk. Copy every figure. That's your entire instruction. Hour after hour, you copy shipments, invoices, taxes, cargo manifests, letters, trade agreements. At first, it feels painfully boring. Then, patterns begin to appear. Ships don't just carry tea, they carry cotton, silk, saltpeter, opium, indigo, precious stones. Every page reveals another piece of an enormous machine, a machine stretching thousands of miles from London to India to China and beyond. One afternoon, you accidentally total the value of a single convoy. The number makes your heart stop. One shipment is worth more money than your father could earn in 20 lifetimes. You read the figures again. Surely you've made a mistake. You haven't. That's the day you finally understand. The East India Company isn't becoming wealthy. It already is. Life outside the company's walls teaches a different lesson. India isn't one country. It's a collection of kingdoms, languages, religions, cultures. Every few miles, everything changes. Different rulers, different customs, different laws. Your supervisor gives you unexpected advice. If you want to survive here, learn from the people who already know this land. So you do. You hire a local language teacher. You learn basic Persian, the language used in many official records. You memorize greetings, numbers, trade terms. The more you learn, the more opportunities appear. Merchants begin speaking to you directly. Local officials stop treating you like an ignorant foreigner. Senior company officers start noticing your progress. Then, one afternoon, a wealthy textile merchant invites you into his warehouse. He pours you tea, smiles politely, and slides a small velvet pouch across the table. You don't need to open it. You already know what's inside. Silver coins, more money than you've earned in months. I simply hope, he says quietly, that our future business together remains smooth. Your heart races. Back in England, the answer would have been obvious. Refuse, report him, walk away. But this isn't England. You look around, no one seems surprised, no one appears shocked. In fact, another company official across the room gives you a small nod, as if to say, "This is how things work." You haven't even been in India for a year, and already you're standing at the first crossroads of your career. Do you remain the honest young clerk who left London, or do you become the kind of man this company rewards? The decision you make today will shape every rank that follows. Your first promotion and rank. Factor. 5 years later, your reports impress your superiors. You've earned a promotion to a new rank. You keep the silver. At first, you tell yourself it's only a gift, nothing more. You haven't changed any records. You haven't broken any rules. At least, that's what you keep telling yourself. But over the following months, the gifts continue. A basket of expensive fruit arrives at your quarters, a bolt of fine silk, an invitation to dine with one of Madra's wealthiest merchants. Everyone wants something, a faster signature, a better contract, a lower tax, an earlier shipment. You quickly learn a lesson that no one in London ever taught you. In India, information is often worth more than money, and you now have access to both. Your work begins to change. You're no longer copying numbers all day. Senior officials start asking for your opinion. Which merchant can be trusted? Which local ruler is reliable? Which ports are safest? You spend more time outside the office than inside it. Every journey teaches you something new. Every meeting expands your influence. Every successful deal adds another name to the growing list of people who owe you a favor. Without realizing it, you're building something far more valuable than wealth. You're building a network, and in the East India Company, connections often matter more than talent. 2 years pass. You're no longer the frightened teenager who stepped off the ship. Your clothes are finer. Your handwriting is more confident. You speak enough Persian to negotiate without an interpreter. You even understand fragments of several local languages. One afternoon, a senior company director summons you to his office. He studies your reports in silence, then finally looks up. You've done well, only 4 words, yet they change everything. You're being promoted from company writer to factor. The title sounds insignificant. It isn't. For the first time, you're responsible for company property, warehouses, cargo, inventories, and contracts worth fortunes. One careless mistake could cost the company thousands of pounds. One brilliant decision could make your career. Fort Singh warehouse is larger than anything you've ever managed. Bales of cotton stretch from floor to ceiling, crates of pepper, silk from Bengal, tea waiting to be loaded onto ships bound for England. Workers move constantly. Bookkeepers record every shipment. Armed guards stand at every entrance. This isn't just a warehouse. It's the beating heart of global trade. Every crate leaving this building helps fuel Britain's growing appetite for wealth, and you're now responsible for keeping it moving. The work is relentless. Some merchants arrive honestly, others lie without hesitation. Weights are secretly altered. Cargo is swapped. Documents are forged. Every negotiation feels like a game where everyone is trying to outsmart everyone else. You begin winning more often than you lose, not because you're stronger, but because you've learned something more important: patience. The best negotiators rarely speak first. They listen, they observe, then they strike. Before long, your profits exceed expectations. London notices. Your superiors notice. Even rival merchants begin speaking your name with respect. For the first time in your life, power doesn't feel distant. It feels real. Then everything changes. One morning, a company officer bursts into your warehouse. The Nawab has imposed new restrictions. Merchants stop working. Ships remain anchored. Trade slows almost overnight. For days, meetings fill every hour. At first, you assume diplomats will solve the problem. After all, you're traders, not soldiers. Then, you walk outside. Company troops are marching through the streets, hundreds of them, uniforms perfectly pressed, muskets shining beneath the Indian sun. Behind them, cannons. Your stomach tightens. Back in London, you believed the soldiers existed to protect trade. Standing here, watching an army prepare for something much larger, a troubling question enters your mind. What if trade is no longer the company's true business? What if commerce was only the beginning? As the soldiers disappear into the distance, you realize your next promotion may require far more than balancing ledgers and negotiating contracts. It may require choosing a side in a war that hasn't officially begun. The price of power. War doesn't arrive with a declaration. It arrives with rumors. A merchant whispers that French soldiers have landed farther south. A caravan never reaches its destination. A local ruler suddenly refuses to honor an agreement he'd signed only weeks before. At first, these seem like isolated problems, small inconveniences, nothing more. Then the company's directors begin holding meetings behind closed doors. When they finally emerge, everything changes. More guards appear outside the warehouses. Additional muskets are issued. Cannons are moved closer to the harbor. Every ship arriving from England carries fewer luxury goods and more soldiers. That's when you finally understand. The East India Company isn't preparing for better business. It's preparing for conflict. One morning, you're handed sealed orders. A convoy carrying valuable company cargo is traveling inland. You'll accompany it, not as a soldier, as the company's representative. Your job is to make sure the goods reach their destination and that every agreement is honored. The convoy stretches for nearly half a mile. Bullock carts loaded with cotton, chests of silver, barrels of gunpowder, dozens of armed guards. You can't help but notice something. There are almost as many soldiers as merchants. 3 days into the journey, everything stops. The lead riders raise their hands. Silence spreads through the convoy. Ahead, the road is blocked, not by bandits, by armed men wearing the colors of a local ruler. Their commander rides forward. His message is simple. No one passes. The company owes additional taxes. Your guards immediately reach for their muskets. The local soldiers do the same. One careless movement, and hundreds of people could die over a disagreement about money. Your commanding officer turns to you. They came to negotiate with the company. You're the company. Your heart pounds. Just a few years ago, you were copying numbers in an office. Now, one conversation could decide whether this road becomes a battlefield. You take a slow breath, step forward, and begin talking. For nearly an hour, neither side gives an inch. Finally, a compromise is reached. Part of the cargo is inspected. No additional taxes are paid. The convoy continues. No shots are fired. As the soldiers disappear behind you, your commanding officer smiles. Today, you saved us a battle. You smile back. But his next sentence stays with you. Don't get used to it. There won't always be a peaceful solution. Over the following years, those words prove true. Negotiations become harder. Disputes become more frequent. The company recruits more soldiers, builds stronger forts, signs treaties, breaks others. Local rulers form alliances, some with the British, others with the French. Trade and politics become impossible to separate. Then one evening, a senior officer unfolds a large map across the table. Until now, you've always thought of the company as something that moved goods. He points, not to ports, but to territory. Districts, roads, rivers, entire provinces. This, he says quietly, "Liming," is what we're protecting. You study the map, and for the first time, you ask yourself a question that never crossed your mind back in London. If a company controls the roads, the forts, the taxes, the soldiers, and the laws, is it still just a company, or has it become something else entirely? Tomorrow, you'll receive your next promotion, and with it, your first real command over company troops. After years of successful negotiations, the company rewards your service with a new rank. Senior Merchant. The promotion arrives without celebration. No ceremony, no applause, just a sealed envelope delivered to your desk before sunrise. Inside, one sentence changes your life. You are hereby appointed company officer. You read it twice, then a third time. Only a few years ago, you were copying numbers inside a cramped office. Now, men with muskets will answer to you. Your first command consists of just 60 soldiers. Most are not British, they're Indian recruits. The company calls them sepoys. They wear company uniforms, carry company muskets, march beneath company flags. Yet many have never seen England. At first, you're unsure how to lead them. Their language is different, their customs are different. Even the way they salute differs from what you learned back home. Fortunately, your senior sergeant has served in India for nearly 20 years. His first piece of advice surprises you. If you want these men to follow you, respect them. They're soldiers, not servants. You remember those words because they save your life more than once. Your responsibilities grow quickly. You no longer spend your days inside warehouses. Now, you're constantly moving, escorting valuable cargo, protecting company factories, meeting local rulers, investigating attacks on trade routes. Every road seems peaceful until it isn't. One afternoon, your patrol discovers an entire caravan abandoned beside the road, broken wagons, dead horses, shattered crates. The attackers are long gone, the cargo gone with them. You kneel beside one of the merchants. He barely manages to speak. They knew exactly where we'd be. Someone leaked the convoy's route. Someone inside the company. For the first time, you realize your greatest enemy may not be outside the walls. It may be wearing the same uniform as you. Weeks later, a messenger arrives from Calcutta. Another company outpost has requested reinforcements. Tensions with a powerful local ruler are rising. Officially, you're traveling to protect company property. Unofficially, everyone knows something larger is unfolding. As your column marches across the countryside, you notice something disturbing. Every village tells the same story. Some rulers welcome the company, others fear it. Many simply don't know whether to trust it. To some, you're protecting trade. To others, you're the beginning of foreign rule. The truth depends entirely on who you ask. Then, the order you've been expecting finally arrives. Not to negotiate, not to escort, not to defend, to prepare for battle. Silence falls across your camp. Some soldiers sharpen bayonets, others quietly write letters home. One sepoy removes a small necklace from beneath his uniform, closes his eyes, and whispers a prayer. You realize they're just as frightened as you are. The only difference, they're looking to you for confidence. So you stand, straighten your coat, and tell them exactly what every commander has said before the first battle. We march at dawn. That night, sleep refuses to come. You stare into the campfire, listening to distant drums echo across the darkness. Tomorrow, some of the men around you will die. Perhaps so will you. As the first rays of sunlight rise above the horizon, the army forms into ranks. Across an open field, you finally see them. Thousands of soldiers waiting in silence, banners waving in the morning wind, cannons already in position. This is no longer a dispute over trade, this is war. And before the sun sets, you'll discover that winning a battle is much easier than living with what it costs. The battlefield is strangely quiet, not silent, just waiting. Thousands of men stand perfectly still beneath the blazing Indian sun. The only sounds are horses breathing, leather straps creaking, and the distant beat of war drums. You tighten your grip around the handle of your sword. Your palms are sweating. You tell yourself you're ready. You're lying. No amount of training prepares a man for the moment before battle. Across the field, you watch enemy soldiers adjusting their muskets, artillery crews loading cannons, officers riding calmly along the line, giving final orders. They're just as nervous as you are. The difference is, neither side can afford to show it. Then, a cannon fires. The explosion shakes the earth beneath your feet. A second follows, then a third. Within seconds, the peaceful field transforms into chaos. Iron cannonballs tear through the ranks. Men disappear in clouds of dirt and smoke. Horses collapse. Commands become impossible to hear. Your soldiers look toward you, waiting. You raise your sword. Advance. The line begins moving. Slowly at first, then faster. Every step feels heavier than the last. The distance between both armies shrinks. 300 yards, 200, 100. Your heart pounds so loudly you can barely hear anything else. Then, the enemy fires. A wall of smoke erupts across the field. The sound is deafening. Several of your men fall instantly. One of them had been laughing with you only an hour earlier. Now, he isn't moving. You don't stop. You can't. The line keeps advancing. Your sepoys fire their muskets. Smoke fills the air. For several terrifying minutes, you can barely see 10 feet ahead. Battle isn't glorious. It isn't heroic. It's confusion, noise, fear, survival. You find yourself shouting orders you don't even remember giving. A wounded soldier grabs your arm. You pull him behind cover. Another officer falls from his horse. A cannon explodes only yards away. Your ears ring. Everything becomes strangely quiet. Then, the noise returns all at once. Someone is screaming. Someone is praying. Someone is calling your name. Hours later, the fighting finally slows. The enemy begins retreating. The field belongs to the company. You've won. At least, that's what the official report will say. As you walk across the battlefield, victory doesn't feel like victory. Bodies cover the ground. British soldiers, Indian sepoys, enemy troops. When death arrives, it doesn't care which flag a man serves. You recognize faces, men you shared meals with, men who talked about going home, men who'll never see another sunrise. You remove your hat, not because anyone orders you to, because it feels wrong not to. That evening, the company's senior commander congratulates every officer. The route is secure. The cargo will continue. The company has protected its interests. Everyone applauds. You try, but your hands won't move. For the first time, you understand something few people back in London ever will. Every profitable shipment, every successful trade agreement, every fortune earned by the company has a cost. And that cost is often measured in lives. Weeks later, news of the victory reaches company headquarters. Your name appears in the official report. Your leadership is praised. Your promotion is recommended. The directors in London are impressed. They've never met you. They've never seen the battlefield. They'll never know the names of the men who died under your command. They only see the result. Trade continues. Profits increase. The company grows stronger, and so does your career. But as your influence expands, so does the company's ambition. You thought you were protecting trade routes. Now, you're helping shape the future of an entire continent. Your next assignment won't involve defending company property. It will involve deciding who governs it. 20 years have passed since you first boarded that ship. The company rewards your loyalty once again with a new rank, Member of the Governor's Council. Your promotion arrives from London 6 months later. The letter is short, cold, professional. In recognition of your service, you are hereby appointed Senior Company Administrator. Another promotion, another office, another increase in salary. But this time, the responsibility is different. You're no longer protecting the company's wealth. You're deciding how it's created. Your office overlooks a bustling port. Every morning, hundreds of ships arrive carrying goods from across Asia. Every evening, others depart for England loaded with cotton, tea, silk, indigo, saltpeter, and fortunes beyond imagination. From your window, trade looks effortless, beautiful even. But step outside and you discover what those numbers in your ledgers actually represent. Thousands of laborers loading cargo beneath the scorching sun, farmers forced to grow crops the company demands, local merchants squeezed by contracts they can barely negotiate. Every signature you place on a document changes someone's life. Most of the time, you'll never meet them. Your authority continues to grow. Disputes between merchants now come to you, arguments over taxes, shipping rights, land ownership. Even local rulers request meetings. A realization slowly dawns on you. Years ago, you worked for the company. Now, entire provinces work around it. One afternoon, a carriage arrives carrying a local prince. He doesn't come with soldiers, he comes with gifts. Fine silk, jewelry, gold, tea. He smiles warmly, then places a map on your desk. He wants company support against a neighboring ruler. Not soldiers, not yet. Just recognition. A signature, one document, one decision, one small favor. You stare at the map. Back in England, kings decided borders. Here, a trading company does. The prince waits patiently. He already understands something you've only recently begun to accept. The company doesn't simply trade inside India anymore. It influences who rules it. Months become years. Your reports travel to London. Each one praises expanding trade, higher revenues, safer roads, growing influence. The directors are delighted. Dividends increase. Shareholders celebrate. In coffee houses across London, investors toast another successful year. Few of them have ever seen India. Fewer still understand how those profits are made. You do, because you've watched every step. Then comes the order that changes everything. Not from a general, not from Parliament, from the company's board of directors. Secure greater control over the surrounding territories. The wording is careful, deliberately vague. It never says conquer, occupy, invade. It doesn't have to. Everyone reading the letter understands exactly what it means. Trade alone is no longer enough. The company wants certainty, and certainty requires power, real power. You stand outside your office as another column of sepoys marches past. Thousands of boots strike the ground in perfect rhythm. Behind them, cannons, supply wagons, engineers, surveyors. This isn't an expedition, it's the machinery of the empire. You suddenly remember your first day in London. A frightened 17-year-old carrying everything he owned inside one small leather bag. He believed he was joining a business. If he could see you now, would he even recognize the man you've become? Because somewhere along the journey, without ever intending to, you stopped helping a company grow and started helping an empire take shape. The next rank you earn won't simply make you wealthier, it will place millions of lives under decisions made from your desk. The company becomes an empire. You no longer measure your life in years. You measure it in promotions. Each new rank brings a larger office, more responsibility, and another piece of India placed under the company's control. The transformation happens so slowly, you barely notice it. 1 year, you're negotiating trade agreements. The next, you're approving tax policies. Then, you're settling disputes between neighboring rulers. And before long, people begin referring to the company as if it were a country. Because in many ways, it is. Every morning, reports arrive from every corner of India. Crop harvests, tax collections, military movements, trade profits, population figures. Some are good news, others far from it. One report catches your attention. A district has failed to meet its tax quota. The harvest was poor. Heavy rains destroyed much of the farmland. Village leaders are asking for relief. The request lands on your desk. You have two choices: reduce the taxes or collect every penny the company expects. You know what your conscience tells you, but you also know what London expects. The company's directors don't measure success by compassion. They measure it by profit. After hours of staring at the report, you sign the order. Taxes remain unchanged. You convince yourself the villages will recover next year. You have no evidence that's true. You simply need to believe it. Months later, another report arrives. Several villages have been abandoned. Families have left in search of food. Others didn't survive the journey. You put the report aside. Another meeting begins in 10 minutes. Business never stops. Meanwhile, the company keeps growing. Its army now numbers well over 100,000 men, then 200,000. Eventually, it becomes one of the largest standing armies on Earth, larger than the armies of many European kingdoms. You stop thinking of soldiers as unusual. They're everywhere, guarding warehouses, escorting officials, marching through cities, protecting roads, enforcing company decisions. The merchants who once followed the army, now the army follows the merchants. One afternoon, a young company writer arrives at your office. He reminds you of yourself, nervous, ambitious, curious. He asks a question you haven't heard in years. "Sir, what's it like working for the East India Company?" You almost answer automatically. It's an opportunity. But the words refuse to leave your mouth. Instead, your eyes drift toward the window. Beyond the walls, thousands of people live under decisions you've signed. Some have become wealthier because of the company. Others have lost everything. History is rarely generous enough to divide people into heroes and villains. Most are simply trying to survive the world they inherit, just as you were. You finally look back at the young recruit. You pause, far more than a company. He smiles, thinking you've complimented it. You know you haven't. As another year passes, ships continue sailing home loaded with unimaginable wealth. London celebrates record profits. Shareholders grow richer. The British Empire grows stronger. And the East India Company grows more powerful than ever before. But power has a strange way of attracting attention. For years, Parliament ignored how the company operated. Now, members of the British government begin asking difficult questions. How did a trading company become powerful enough to govern millions? Who is truly in control, the Crown or the company? For the first time in decades, you realize something unexpected. The greatest threat to the East India Company may no longer come from India. It may come from Britain itself, and the empire you've spent your entire career helping build is about to face its greatest challenge yet. The price of empire. The questions from Parliament grow louder every year. Newspapers in London begin printing stories about corruption inside the company. Former employees testify before government officials. Some accuse company officers of accepting bribes. Others speak of fortunes made almost overnight. For the first time, people back home begin asking a dangerous question. Has the East India Company become too powerful, You try to ignore the politics. Your work hasn't changed. Every morning, another stack of reports waits on your desk. Revenue, trade, security, military expenses. But something else has begun appearing more often. Food shortages, crop failures, villages requesting emergency supplies. At first, they're isolated incidents. Then, they become impossible to ignore. Entire districts begin struggling. Merchants complain that fewer farmers are bringing goods to market. Tax collectors report that families have nothing left to give. One afternoon, you decide to inspect one of the affected regions yourself. The journey takes several days. As your carriage approaches the first village, an uncomfortable silence settles over everyone. No children are playing outside. No merchants are selling food. No smoke rises from the cooking fires. Only empty streets. You step down from the carriage. The village elder slowly approaches. He's thinner than you expected, much thinner. He removes his hat, not out of respect, but because he no longer has the strength to stand straight. Our harvest failed, he speaks quietly. We paid the company's taxes. Now, he looks back toward the village. There is nothing left. For several seconds, neither of you says a word. You know the company's warehouses still contain grain, enough to feed thousands, but those supplies have already been sold. Contracts have been signed. Ships are waiting. Breaking those contracts would cost enormous sums of money. You return to your carriage carrying a weight far heavier than your briefcase. That evening, you sit alone in your office. The ledger lies open before you. To London, this district is just another column of numbers. Revenue, expenses, profit, loss. No ledger records empty stomachs. No balance sheet measures suffering. You pick up your pen, then stop. Years ago, making difficult decisions felt simple. Protect the company's interests, increase trade, expand prosperity. Now, every signature feels heavier than the last. You finally understand something no one told you when you first joined. Power doesn't make difficult choices disappear. It creates them. Weeks later, your promotion arrives, another increase in salary, another larger office, another title added to your name. The letter congratulates you for your outstanding service. You fold it carefully, then place it inside your desk. You don't celebrate, you don't tell anyone, because deep down, you know you've spent your entire career climbing a ladder, without ever asking where it was leading. Outside your window, another company ship prepares to leave for England. Its cargo holds are overflowing. Cotton, tea, indigo, silk. The voyage will make investors richer than ever before. The directors in London will celebrate another successful year. They'll praise the efficiency of the East India Company. Very few of them will ever see the villages you walked through, or the people whose lives paid for those profits. History often remembers empires by the wealth they created, much less often by the people who carried the cost. As the ship disappears beyond the horizon, another messenger arrives from Calcutta. His expression tells you everything before he speaks. Sir, the government in London has sent new orders. They're coming to inspect the company. For the first time in your career, the empire you've spent decades helping build is about to answer for itself. Your legacy. The inspectors from London arrive with thick ledgers, long lists of questions, and very little patience. For weeks, they examine every contract, every expense, every military campaign, every shipment. Nothing escapes their attention. You sit across from men who have never crossed the Indian Ocean, never marched through a monsoon, never negotiated with local rulers, never stood on a battlefield. Yet now, they're judging the empire you've spent your entire adult life helping build. The questions become harder. Did the company exceed its authority? Were taxes collected fairly? Why does a trading company command one of the largest armies in the world? You answer honestly. at least as honestly as you can. The truth is complicated. Without the company's soldiers, many trade routes would never have survived. Without its administrators, ports would never have expanded. Without its merchants, Britain might never have become the world's greatest trading power. But another truth exists alongside it. The company's pursuit of profit often came before the people living under its rule. Sometimes you convinced yourself that was simply the price of progress. Now, you're no longer certain. Months later, the decision arrives. The British government will tighten its control over the company. More oversight, more regulations, less independence. The age when a corporation could act almost like a sovereign nation is beginning to end. You aren't surprised. Perhaps it was inevitable. No organization grows that powerful forever. Not a kingdom, not an empire, not even the East India Company. Years pass, your hair turns grey. The young clerk who once stepped aboard a ship in London exists only in memory. One afternoon, you unlock a wooden chest that has traveled with you for decades. Inside are the pieces of your life: your first employment papers, your first promotion, a faded map of India, letters from home, the small Bible your mother insisted you bring. You open it carefully. Between its pages, you find a pressed flower. You don't remember placing it there, but suddenly, you remember the night before you left England, your mother's smile, your father's advice, the dreams you carried onto that ship. None of them imagined this life, neither did you. You walk outside as the sun begins to set. The harbor is still busy, ships still come and go, merchants still bargain, soldiers still march. The world keeps moving, with or without you. You realize something that's taken an entire lifetime to understand. Empires aren't built by a single king or one famous general. They're built by thousands of ordinary people, each making what seems like an ordinary decision. Signing a contract, boarding a ship, accepting a promotion, following an order. You were one of those people. History will never remember your name, but it will remember the company you served. Some historians will call it the greatest trading corporation ever created. Others will call it one of the most powerful instruments of imperial expansion the world has ever seen. Many will argue it brought commerce, law, and modern administration. Many others will argue it brought exploitation, conflict, and suffering. History rarely offers simple verdicts. It simply asks us to confront complicated truths. You arrived in India as a frightened 17-year-old looking for opportunity. You leave as one of the company's senior officers, wealthier than you ever imagined, more experienced than you ever expected, and carrying questions that no amount of money can answer. As your ship slowly disappears beyond the horizon, India fades into the distance, just as England once did. Your extraordinary life is over, but somewhere, another young man is standing on another dock, believing he's only accepted a job.